Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd. In this week's Farscape, an episode entitled Picture, If You Will. Most of the plot of the episode is really about Zan, although from watching it, you really can't tell that until the end. It's an interesting way that it's written. In this, we're reintroduced to Maldus, who is an adversary that we met in a previous episode, and another character who actually is Maldus in disguise, Kevin. Maldus is a vampire of souls as such, and the way to get them good and spicy, apparently, is to scare them before he devours them. Although in this case, he's not even after the people he captures, but instead he's plotting revenge on Zan. The episode starts where Rigel, Chiana, and Aaron are in basically a junk shop somewhere in deep space. Later in the episode, Aaron indicates that Chiana and Rigel would stop at every junk shop they pass in the uncharted territories. Rigel indicates that often they can find things, though, that they can trade for food later, which makes some sense. And, of course, we see from Chiana that she believes if it's not worth anything, she doesn't want it. So that kind of sets a little bit of character development there. But really what drives the plot is a portrait that portrays Chiana and a necklace that she had lost. Kevin gives it to her after Rigel has purchased a Hynerian relic that he believes is fake, and at a rather low price. But maybe he can pass it off later for something valuable. Hello, Kitty. Back on Moya, DRD brings Chiana her necklace, and immediately the portrait changes to depict Chiana with a broken leg. Immediately she trips over the DRD and her leg is broken. Zan immediately investigates and can find nothing unusual about the portrait. However, the picture now has changed to show Chiana dying in a fire. To make a long story short, Dargo also dies shortly after Chiana, and we know by now in any kind of series television, if a main character dies, that you don't expect him to stay dead, at least before the end of the episode. So it's the same here. Normally this would spoil the entire episode for me, but really what caught my attention was what caused this and how they're going to figure it out. Not so much that the character has apparently died, and in fact the living characters don't seem to have much trouble either. Probably the most sentimental thing that was said about either of them was from Rigel. He said that Chiana would have made a great Hynerian because she had a large appetite. She was also had other good Hynerian qualities. Also said that he would very much miss her. The suspense comes from Zan, who's more agitated than she usually is, evidently because she can't seem to find out what's wrong and how to fix it. However, she tells John that when the time comes, he must do whatever she says without question. Now, he says that he has her back, and why she can't tell him is something of a mystery. She's also apparently quite scared. So as I said, this episode is one that's centered on Zan, and she's the one who figures out how to recover everyone and solve the riddle and save the day. It's a nice detour from previous episodes from where Zan had very little to do, very little to say, until this episode. So as I said, this episode is one that's centered on Zan, and she's the one who figures out how to recover everyone and solve the riddle and save the day. It's a nice detour from previous episodes from where Zan had very little to do, very little to say, until this episode. That said, Zan is still more of a mystery than even her crewmates can imagine, and maybe more of a cipher. There are other moments where Dargo, Pilot, Aaron, and Rigel have some good bits as well, as does Chiana, who's also well used in this episode, but most of it is carried by Virginia Hay, who does a very good job showing her agitation and her fear at what is at best a mediocre adversary. I rather like the part at the end where, once again, we have Rigel and Chiana trying to make sense of what's just happened. And as usual, they were inaccurate in just about everything. It makes a little bit of comic relief and also helps the viewer feel a little less dumb by figuring out a little bit more than the characters have. At any rate, Crichton has figured out why Zen was keeping information from him, and Malthus would be able to read his mind and foil Zen's plan. All in all, not the greatest Farscape episode, but entertaining nonetheless. Now, due to technical problems that have nothing to do with my cat, but my own mistakes, we were unable to do Talking Movies with Professor O last week. We've fixed the problem there, so this week we're going to go back and do The Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin this Thursday. And I'll also be back with a new season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It begins this week, and we'll have a review of that on Friday. So sometime in the middle of the day, Friday, we'll have that dropped for you. So we hope that you'll join us then, and until then, don't go far.